2. Alright, for those of you on YouTube who are unfamiliar with this, this is essentially a quick rundown of last month's events, current happenings, and our plans for the future. And this is a Patreon reward. And this, along with the server in its entirety, is solely, this would not be possible without their exceptionally generous donations. So, if you'd like to join me in upcoming State of the Server addresses, or if you'd just like to support the server in general, feel free to check out the link down in the description. So let's get right into it, shall we? On today's agenda, we have last month's events with mod additions, or, well, last month's is a few months, things happened. Mod additions, Starry Pi 3K development, automated pruning, and wonderful unscheduled downtime. In current events, we have some problematic people, and plans for the future, a well-needed forms overhaul. And of course, we'll end it out with open discussion. So, mod additions. Fairly simple. Jerusens Plus was added on 17.09.14 because people wanted it, and it's a good mod, and we had it before, and it's good, so we added it. And there's Familiar Hoodie. It's added on 7.10.25, and it's a long story, so let's move on. Starry Pi 3K development. In one of the previous State of the Server addresses, I mentioned creating our own fork. We have done that now. And this was mainly because the main fork is too unstable for us to pull from automatically, and that bit us in the butt a few times. So let's not do that. And this new fork also allows us to add FBR specific stuff, like stuff that the normal Starry Pi 3K branch would not benefit from, or that they just don't want, but we do, so we can do that now. And in general, it just gives us more control, which is always a good thing. I also managed to quote-unquote fix ship claims for player resets. You know how if you have to have a character reset, for a while you'd log back in and wouldn't be able to touch your ship. Slight problem there. So I added a command that would remove all, any invalid claims, including broken ship claims. So that kind of fixes the issue. It's not great, but it'll work for now. I also added player pruning. Let's move on to something for that. So, Starry Pi 3K's database was becoming problematic. There were, I want to say, a good 9,000 usernames in there, or player entries. So there are many operations where the server has to iterate over that, and that gets pretty slow when you have 9,000 entries. And it also means that many choice names were being taken up for no real reason. So we decided to change that. Player pruning to the rescue. Any players with a rank below registered, like guests, that sort of thing, they are pruned after 4 months of inactivity. And apparently there were a lot of these, around 7,000 of them. So a lot of choice names were cleared up. Oh, alright, I will check that afterwards, thank you. And Starbound also had some problems. The universe was becoming rather gigantic, considering that we have to store it in RAM because Starbound is a garbage fire. That's a bit of a problem, because the more storage for the universe that goes into RAM, the less RAM the server has to actually run. Plus, with backups and everything, the larger the storage usage, the longer the backup takes. So cutting it down is pretty good. We set it up so that planets that have not been accessed in over 4 months will get removed. However, anything common, like notable planets, hub planets, stuff that's used for RP a lot, it will be retained regardless of age. We do keep track of this stuff so that your, rarely used planets that are actually still needed won't get removed. Moving on, we have the unscheduled downtime. Always wonderful to say this. On 17.10.07, the server did successfully come back online after a restart, but most of the mods weren't there, so that caused some problems. Mainly, anyone who managed to get onto the server, any world that they were on would be instantly corrupted. And a lot of worlds got corrupted, coincidentally. So that wasn't good. Surprise, surprise, this was caused by Steam CMD being terrible. Basically, there is a flag that If you don't have it set at all, SteamCMD just decides that everything is terrible and on fire, and it always returns a failing status code no matter what happens. If you do set the flag but set it to false, SteamCMD decides that everything is wonderful, even if it's on fire. Also not good. But if you set the flag and set it to true, then everything kind of sort of works. So now that we've got that crap figured out, hopefully this won't happen again. Plus I added some other checks and stuff because I really don't trust SteamCMD. Then there's the downtime on 17.11.11. This was Starbound just decided to not happening. As far as I can tell, the world server thread hung. All the other ones were fine, so it was accepting connections, Archon commands, everything, except actual players going down to a world. So that kind of sucks, especially since Star Control couldn't tell that things were broken. It was easy to fix by hand, but considering Star Control takes about 10 seconds to recover from something, and I take, multiple hours, it would be best if Star Control could detect this. Whether or not I can figure out how to do that, I don't know, but I will look into it. Okay, moving on, we have current events with problematic people. Long story short, we are aware of the issue. If you would like to discuss it further, please contact either myself or another staff member in private, and we will go from there. Or alternatively, we can discuss it as a group after this state of the server. So, moving on, we have plans for the future with a forms overhaul, a much needed forms overhaul, because our forms kind of suck a lot. So we need to choose a replacement software. The thing is, we can afford Zen4.0 now. Whether or not we should go with Zen4.0, that's a different story. And I'd very much like to get input from our Patreon supporters, because okay, I'll have to keep that in mind. But yeah, there's always PHP BB, or as Jack has said, possibly vBulletin. But there's also Zen4.0. We can afford it, but it's 140 USD, and I'm not quite sure if it's worth it, because we don't quite use our forms all that much. But if our forms are actually good, that might change. That said, this $140 could be used as a down payment for a further upgraded server. Whether or not we need that, I'm not sure. Speaking of input, let's move on to open discussion. So if you have any input on that topic or any topic in general, now would be a good time to bring it up. If not, we can just close it out. Okay, shoot. Yes. I have not played it, but I am familiar with it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, Zen4.0 is very versatile, and we can also plug it into other things like perhaps a wiki, stuff like that, or write our own plugins to tie it in with StarryPy3K even. So we could make it so that your player entries are tied to an account on the forums. Granted, someone would have to write all of that, and we're all a bit strapped for time, but it is possible. And there's also enterprise support and all that, because we're actually paying for it, so someone is going to be there to help us fix it. But whether or not that's worth $140, I'm not sure. I think we have 64 gigs to work with. I want to say 32 is dedicated to universe storage, and we usually only end up using about half of the 16 that's left, or half of the 32 that's left. So Starbound server usually uses around like 8 to 16 gigs. Yeah, I mean, we're running pretty much everything in it because Starbound has insane amount of IO ops needs. But I mean, if we were to upgrade, we could go to a server with DDR4. And DDR4 is going to be significantly faster, which is pretty important considering that we're doing pretty much everything in RAM. And we have reached points where we're kind of overloading our RAM. Yeah, I think that's yeah, I think that stands true for most people. I mean, with Discord, you generally don't need the forums. Um, okay. Yeah, I've been kind of leaning that way as well, but again, if anyone else has input, I'd love to hear it, even after the state of the server has concluded, because this isn't going to happen immediately, of course. But yeah, I think it may be best to go with a hardware upgrade, because I think we can get, let me bring this up real quick, we can get a pretty decent server, if I can find the link. There we go. I was looking at, on the same host that we currently use, they have an offer for a dedicated server with a Ryzen 7 1700X, which is a fair amount better than our current CPU, with a pair of 500 gig SSDs and 64 gigs of DDR4 RAM. It's slightly more expensive than what we currently have, but it's still within within what we can afford. But there is a €120 one-off setup fee. It's kind of on par with our current hardware except for the RAM, which, considering how much load we put on our RAM, it might be something we would benefit from significantly. Yeah. Yes. If you'd like to discuss that, I can close out the state of the server. So actually, that may be best. If there's anything else that someone would like to bring up for the state of the server, now's a good time. If not, we'll close it out and talk about the problematic people. The crashes? Yes. It is a long-standing bug in Starbound that we can do nothing about. I'm afraid not. I mean, yeah, it really sucks. Essentially, it is a severe memory leak in Starbound. So whenever it is triggered, the server instantly eats up all 32 gigs of RAM and then starts dishing out to swap, which swamps out the hard drives. And it just gets very messy. Yes, it is a starbound issue. I am working on some ways of counteracting it, but considering that as soon as it happens, like almost instantaneously, the CPU usage on the server will jump up to 50. The CPU only supports, like, I don't know, I want to say a load rating of 16 or maybe 32, depending on how many threads we have. 50 is not something it can deal with. So as soon as that happens, you can't run anything. Any commands you try and run will just sit until the server is killed by the out-of-memory killer. So we just have to wait until that happens. But yeah, it is something that I've been looking into. I've been looking into it for, I want to say, like over a year now, because that's how long it's been an issue. But so far I have not found a decent way of counteracting it. No. Yeah, except it's not open source. If it were open source, I could fix things. I could fix bugs that I've been trying to get fixed for over a year, but it's not open source. Or just make it actually conform to TCP/IP standards. Like, yes! Yes, there are instances where Starbound violates TCP standards. I have no idea. I mean, I don't know. Oh. Oh, wonderful. Perhaps one day they'll open source Starbound and we'll get to fix everything then, but I get the feeling at the same time when they open source it, there are going to be a whole bunch of 0 days dropped, and that's going to be a wonderful experience. Yeah. I mean, some of it's really simple too, like Starbound will receive a reset. Like, the server or the client will say, hey, reset this connection, it should now die. And it'll just keep sending packets. Just keep sending packets. It's like, okay, this connection's dead, here, have all these packets. It's okay, just keep taking them, it'll be fine. No, that breaks everything. But yeah. Alright, I think we have slightly deviated off topic from the state of the server, so it's probably a good time to close it out. If there is anything else that someone would like to bring up, feel free, but if not, let's close it out. And we can continue discussion afterwards, of course. Good to close it out? No, you're good. Perhaps it would be worth doing a full, in-depth analysis of Starbound's networking protocols. Doubt I'd be able to get anything fixed, but at least I'd know the full extent of the issues. Right, it's all good. Anything else that anyone would like to add? All right. I guess we'll close it out then. So, thank you all for coming. As usual, links are going to be down in the description of the YouTube video, and I'll see you next time.